All right, since we got that nice little quiet pause, I'll go ahead and start about 30 seconds early here. Good evening, everyone. My name is Susan Kerner. I'm a board member of the Parent Network and the director of the Elmbrook Parent Leadership Council. The Elmbrook Parent Network is a parent-to-parent connection within the school district of Elmbrook, which addresses parent concerns on academic and social issues, providing parents with the tools and resources to assist them in guiding their children as they grow and become good decision makers. Parent Network is a parent-run volunteer organization financially supported by the parent-teacher organizations in the school district of Elmbrook. Parent Network oversees the Elmbrook Parent Leadership Council and is invested in the development of current and future parent leaders in our school community. The EPLC facilitates communication between leaders of parent-led organizations, parents, teachers, district administration, the Board of Education, and other interested persons. The council strives to provide leadership training to volunteers and to encourage volunteering at all levels within our schools. Each parent-led organization's president is a member of the council. Vice presidents and executive board members are encouraged to join us. On behalf of the Parent Network and EPLC, I would like to welcome you to the 2022 School Board Candidate Forum. A forum is held when there are more than 2 candidates vying for an open school board seat. This year, 3 individuals filed for the open Area 2 seat. We also have 2 candidates for the open at-large seat. The candidate forum is designed to give the Elmbrook community a chance to learn about the candidates and hear their responses to our questions. Primary to the primary election on Tuesday, February 15th, and the general election on Tuesday, April 5th. We solicited the Elmbrook community to submit questions for the candidates via a Google form or a phone call to the district from January 7th through the 21st. Notices were posted on the Elmbrook Board Elections webpage, district announcements, school newsletters, Parent Network Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, as well as the Parents of Facebook pages for each of the Elmbrook schools, and sent to local media contacts for distribution. A team of volunteers from EPLC member organizations came together January 24th through the 26th to review the submissions from community members and compile 14 unique questions for the candidates. These questions were submitted to the deputy clerk on January 27th. The deputy clerk sent the forum outline and questions to the candidates and the moderator on January 28th. The moderator has selected 10 of these 14 questions to pose to the candidates this evening. There are going to be 4 ways to view tonight's forum, obviously here in the district office. We do have sign language interpreters with us this evening for our hard of hearing or hearing impaired viewers. And the forum is also being recorded from this location. We have the live stream of the forum, which is being run from here. You can find that on the district's website at elmbrookschools.org/livestream. There's also a watch site over at Brookfield Central. That's something new this year. It was originally going to be in the Brookfield Central cafeteria. It has since been moved to the black box. And so the district live stream will be viewable from that location at BC. After the forum is over, you have the opportunity to view the recording, which is going to be available on the Elmbrook Parent Network YouTube channel, and that'll be available as soon as possible after tonight's event. The Elmbrook Parent Network and Leadership Council requests all audience members to respect our candidates by giving them your full attention throughout this evening's session. The forum is a candidate-focused event. It does not include an audience comment portion or opportunity for direct engagement with the candidates during the forum. Please refrain from audible reactions to selected questions or the candidates' responses to those questions. Also, we ask that you please silence your cell phones for the duration of this evening's event. These will enable a higher quality recording for community members to view before and after the primary election. Thank you for taking time out of your evening to hear from our candidates. Thank you to the candidates for being here this evening. Let me now introduce you to the moderator for tonight's forum, Tom Gale. Tom and his wife Barb have lived in the community for 35 years. Tom has recently retired from Serigraph Incorporated, where he served as the Director of Procurement. He served on the Elmbrook School Board from 2005 until 2017, and is currently on the board of the Lake Country Classical Academy, a charter school located in Oconomowoc. Tom also feels privileged to serve on the board of Bridge Builders, an organization dedicated to building physical and relational bridges in the central city of Milwaukee. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight, and most of all, thank you to the EPLC and to the candidates. Tonight's forum will consist of 3 parts, candidates. Opening remarks from yourselves, questions and answers to the 10 questions that were selected from the 14 that were submitted by the community in January, and then closing remarks from each candidate. I'm pleased to introduce tonight the participants in tonight's candidate forum. Moving from left to right, Glenn Allgaier. Glenn is currently the holder of the Area 2 seat and has been a board member since 2007. He is currently the treasurer of the Elmbrook School Board. Linda Boucher, she is currently a member of the school board, holding an at-large seat, and has been a member since 2016. Kathy Lim is a candidate for the Area 2 seat. Daniel Medeiros is a candidate for the Area 2 seat, and Katie Rasul is a candidate for the at-large seat. I would ask candidates to manage your own microphone. When you are finished speaking, please turn it off so that ambient noise will be minimized for the candidate who is speaking at the time. Let's begin with opening remarks. You will each have 2 minutes to speak. We have a district timer on the floor. The timer will show a yellow sign when you have 15 seconds left to speak. The timer will show a red stop sign when your time is up. In your introduction, we hope that you will cover your reasons for wanting to become a board member and what expertise and knowledge you will bring to the board. I will notify candidates that we intend to rigorously enforce the time limit, reason being that's the only way to allow adequate and equal time to each candidate over the course of the 2 hours. So, thank you. We will now transition into the Q&A portion of tonight's forum after your opening remarks. This will be a total of 10 minutes, with each of you having 2 minutes. We will move from left to right, and then as we progress to further questions, we will skip one down. So Glenn will begin, then the next time will be Linda, then the next time will be Kathy, and so on. Any questions before we begin? Okay, thank you. Glenn.
Well, first I'd like to express my appreciation to the EPLC for hosting this event and for all the preparation that went into it. Lots of work, I'm sure. I'd also like to thank each of you who is here, who've taken time from a busy schedule to be here and just to be informed, because I believe it's informed electors who make the best decisions in our elections. Our family moved to Brookfield in 1987 with our 5 youngest of our 9 children. And as many of you, we selected Elmbrook because of the excellent reputation that it has. My wife, Cindy, who passed away 5 years ago, was passionate about education and very involved. Helping in the classroom, she played a key role in establishing the Gifted and Talented program here in the district, served as the PTO president, and many other activities. Following retirement, I now have the time to invest in our school district. I feel that the core of education happens in the classroom, between the teacher and the student. Each year I have the opportunity to visit over 100 classrooms in our 10 buildings and learn more about what happens on the ground. I also have the time to research the proposals put forth by the administration, because I feel we do not have unlimited resources, either in financial or time, and we need to invest them wisely. People often ask, why don't you run the school district like a private sector? And too often the reply is, we're different. Our products are children, not widgets. While I agree with that thought, I also feel there are many private sector practices that do apply to education as well. This evening you will hear how I feel about some of these private sector practices that have benefited the Elmbrook School District during the past 15 years.
Thank you, Glenn. Linda?
I'm Linda Boucher, and I've been on the school board for 2 terms, as you know. My background is I'm a former small business owner and account executive. I made a career out of being a special education teacher. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree from the University of Whitewater in education. I also have a Director of Special Education certification and licensure from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. Why am I running? I am a common sense person with common sense solutions. I have a deep commitment to education, since that was my lifelong passion, and it still is. It hasn't stopped. Some of my accomplishments on the board are as a member of the Legislative and Engagement Committee. I worked with the district police departments to implement school safety measures. We also incorporated school safety officers into the district schools. I worked with the state assembly, which I'm very proud of, to increase funding for district special education. As a result of meeting with legislators, I was instrumental in influencing legislation to reinstate teaching cursive writing in public schools. And I find that as a landmark because, as I told them, cursive writing is not just cursive writing. It is fine motor. It is spatial orientation. It's encoding. It's decoding. It's being able to read historic documents. And I worked very hard to convince legislative people to pass that through, and I'm proud to say it went through. I've been on the Finance and Operation Committee to avoid all tax referendum through a constant sound budget management and planning. And I have to give a little kudos to Glenn for that. He's been the chairperson of F&O, and he does an outstanding job, I must say. I approve the renovation of high school tennis courts
Thank
and
you, Linda. We
supported
have to stop you
expansion
there.
of spectator areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Kathy.
Thank you, Elmbrook Parent Network and EPL for hosting and Tom for moderating. My name is Kathy Lim, an Area 2 seat candidate for the Elmbrook School Board. I'm a mother of 3 children and a rescue dog, Linus. I have a child who is currently attending Brookfield Central High School. I'm a registered nurse with active licenses in 2 states. I earned my Bachelor's Science in Nursing at University of Illinois in Chicago, then went on to earn my master's degree in nursing executive leadership as a working mom. I'm a certified in operating room nursing, and I'm currently completing my legal nurse consultant certification. I have been fortunate to be a nurse over 26 years, moving from a staff nurse to a director of operation within amazing organizations who mentored and afforded me much opportunities. I pioneered in dynamic practical orientation solutions for operating room nurses, surgical techs, and other roles, and have reorganized orientation manuals as nurse educator, and then continued to support the program as a director by allocating resources for its sustained success. Nurses are lifelong teachers. In my most recent position as the Director of Operations in Surgical Services, which I held through last year, in leading teams of 350 people responsible for a multi-million-dollar annual budget at a Level 1 trauma center, I successfully led $20 million surgery modernization construction project and pioneered surgical workforce pipeline design. My family and I moved to Brookfield 3.5 years ago, researching school district would be best for our children. Elmbrook's reputation was stellar from the outside. I have significant concerns that similar ideas of Chicago Public Schools have invaded in the Elmbrook philosophy. I am running for the school board to ensure Chicago's past and present doesn't become Elmbrook's future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Daniel?
Hi, my name is Daniel Medeiros, and I'm running for a school board Area 2 seat. My wife and I have 2 children in the district, a junior who's on the varsity soccer team at Brookfield Central, and an 8th grader at Wisconsin Hills. I've been volunteering at public schools for about 15 years or so. Prior to moving to Wisconsin about 5 years ago, I used to tutor 3rd and 4th grade math and English. After moving to Wisconsin, I started volunteering with the Launch program as a business coach mentor. I believe volunteering with schools is a great way to enrich our students' education. I'm an electrical engineer with over 25 years of experience. I have both an undergraduate and a master's degree from the University of Maryland. An engineer approaches problems, as something to be solved, right? I plan on employing some of these successful professional skills to the board if I'm elected. I was originally born in Brazil. My mom is American, my dad's Brazilian. I grew up in Rio de Janeiro until I finished high school, and then I came to the U.S. For my higher studies. I am fluent in Portuguese, and I have a working knowledge of Spanish. I've always wanted the best possible education for our children, and volunteering was a way that I found that I could fulfill that need. I decided to run because I believe we can improve our students' education and to better prepare them to enter a modern workforce. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And Katie.
My name is Katie Ross-Sewell, and I'm a candidate for the at-large seat, which is on the ballot on April 5th. Thank you. I'm the parent of 2 young learners, a first grader and a future 4K'er at Swanson Elementary, and a district resident of over 8 years. I work as a leadership coach and a team culture expert as the founder of my own Brookfield-based company. I've led leadership, organizational development, and human resources best practices for over 15 years and for over 10,000 employees, and I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets. I have earned bachelor's degrees in both finance and French from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh with honors. I've also earned an MBA and have continued my professional education as a certified professional coach and a senior professional in human resources. In the community, I've served in leadership roles within Tempo, Milwaukee, and as an Elmbrook Launch Program mentor and an Elmbrook Education Foundation board member. I've been very engaged in the board's work since my oldest entered into the Elmbrook school system, and I'm struck by one important theme. The future that we want for our kids doesn't just happen. We have to build it. I'm running for school board to build that future by focusing on the district's priorities and what's possible, rather than what we can't do or why we won't. I'm driven, strategic, empathetic, and I'm all in for our public schools. Thank you to the Parent Network and the Parent Leadership Council for hosting this event, for those of you engaged in watching tonight, and I look forward to your questions.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We will now transition to the questions. Unlike what I earlier misstated, I apologize for that. During this section, I will ask a total of 10 questions. Each of those 10 questions were selected from the 14 that were submitted to you a couple of weeks ago. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to each of these questions. The district timer will again be used to help you track your time and let you know when your time is up. The order of answering questions will rotate with each question, which I addressed earlier. And please note that the order of questions may be a little different than how they were presented to you, but I will note the number of the question as I'm sure you prepared them in order. So any questions before we get started, with Linda being the first to speak? Okay, thank you, candidates. The first question tonight is, if elected to the board, what are the top 3 priorities you plan to address?
The top 3 priorities that I feel need to be addressed are student achievement and closing the achievement gap based on our continuing declining in math scores, reading, and language arts scores. That also needs to be addressed through curriculum, content, and age-appropriate materials, free from inappropriate, highly suggestive sexual content. I also feel it's very important to take a good look at the use of technology and how it can be more effectively used in the classroom. I haven't done any research or data regarding this, but I do think that there's probably a correlation between the issuing of all the technological devices in every student's hands and the declining math and reading scores. They seem to be occurring at the same time that was introduced. And then most importantly too, our first focus always on students and achievement and what we can do to meet their social, emotional, and academic needs, but we also need to continue keeping a close eye on our physical responsibilities, and we do that through good operating and planning through the Finance and Operation Committee. We do extensive 10-year planning to make sure that this district does not have to go to a referendum, and we're very proud of the fact that we also have a AAA rating. So those are the things that I think are most important to be addressed.
Thank you, Linda. Kathy, and incidentally for candidates, I will repeat the question one time after initially being asked, but again, in the interest of time, I will not repeat it more than once. So, Kathy.
Because the candidates were advised that the questions have been evaluated through the district's core values, I have prepared all my answers to these questions with the district's core values in mind. For this question, I focused on the district's core values of engagement and excellence. If elected to the board, my top 3 priorities that I plan to address are consistent with the district strategy for 21 and 22, including number 1, engaging students in high-quality learning that prepares them for life, college, and career, with ensuring equal access to opportunities for all students in their areas of ability and readiness. Number 2, collaboratively cultivating a positive and diverse work environment, including hiring and retaining the best qualified teachers based on qualification, content of their character, and with strong work ethics. Number 3, creating maximum education value for our students academically, given that 56 cents of every tax dollars goes to the school district. To achieve this, the school board must recognize and understand its full plenary authority and responsibility to the community and start discussing real issues so our children are no longer paying the price of rubber-stamped agendas. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Daniel?
If elected, my top 3 priorities for the district are belonging, excellence, and wellness. On my priority for belonging, I want to make sure that we foster and develop inclusive environments with attention of embracing ideas and people. When students today join the corporate professional workforce, most companies are going to have diversity and inclusion initiatives. Being able to communicate and interact effectively with others will be essential to their success. On my priority for wellness, the school district has great initiatives on nurturing health of students and staff. We send out periodic surveys to both students and staff, querying them on a variety of mental health and wellness topics. We need to continue to ensure that this survey is well designed and use its results as an input to make decisions, especially if we see a big shift in any area from previous surveys. On my priority for excellence, our school district has always scored competitively with our benchmark districts. There's always room for improvement. Our reading proficiency scores have shown us that we have a significant portion of our student population that does not meet state proficiency standards. As a board member, I would want to look at that and change what we can in how we're teaching our elementary school children to read. Literacy is a foundation for future academic excellence. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Katie?
Elmbrook is a top-tier district at many things historically, including academic excellence and fiscal responsibility. And to be clear, those are very important to me, and I know that I will continue to support those practices. Now, beyond that, I see other areas where I would like us to be best in class too. Here are my top 3 priorities. First, a culture of belonging. Every student and staff member feels safe, seen, and able to bring their whole selves to school. This helps remove roadblocks to student learning and engagement and supports retaining our talented teachers in the district. Our goals can't be met if our students or staff feel like outsiders. Number 2, student and staff well-being. Ensure staff and students have the support needed for physical, social, and emotional well-being. As we emerge from a life-altering pandemic, it is of the utmost priority to me to ensure resources are in place to bolster the social and emotional well-being of our staff and students. This is a key input to student success. And number 3, well-rounded readiness. That means best-in-class academic offerings, the arts, and co-curricular and readiness programs, which will set our students up for success after graduation. Incredible programs like Launch help ready our high school students for what's next. I'm excited to see the impact of 4K on our youngest learners. The goals are readiness, literacy, resiliency, and the skills needed to navigate college, adulthood, and the wide world beyond Elmbrook. These goals require us to be forward-thinking, strategic, and open to growing. Those are key skills that I bring to the table.
Thank you, Katie. And Glenn, for the final response to the first question.
I also have three priorities, as we were asked. For me, our number one priority is related to COVID. As with other districts throughout the country, our student learning gains were less than what we experienced prior to COVID. Fortunately, in Elmbrook, the learning loss appears to be about half of what has been experienced nationally. We need to get back to normal quickly as possible. It's my hope that we can remove all mitigation factors that potentially interfere with the education process, such as masks, both students and teachers, physical separation, virtual learning, and so forth. My second priority is related to the first. It's academic excellence. The stated mission of the School District of Elmbrook is to educate and inspire every student to think, to learn, and to succeed in life, career, and college. In my mind, that means focus on the basics, making sure that students have a solid foundation in the elementary school level. Reading fundamentals by the end of third grade, math fundamentals by the end of fifth grade, and writing. This takes place in the classroom. We need to be cautious about imposing additional requirements on the teacher that can take away from instructional time. Third priority is fiscal responsibility. The district needs to have a long-range, fiscally sustainable budget that prioritizes investments in instruction by focused efforts on minimizing expense in administration, health, care, energy, and debt. We are fortunate that while many districts are facing significant shortfalls due to the state budget that allowed for zero increase in per pupil funding, our long-range plan has resulted in minimal impact on our district.
Thank you, candidates, and thank you, Glenn. Question number 2, which we will begin with Kathy, is actually question number 14 as it appeared on your list. So I'll give a second for candidates to perhaps shift their notes. The next question is, in promoting your candidacy for the school board, have you or will you accept monetary or in-kind donations from political or special interest groups? What is your opinion of special interest groups influencing the school board election and board decision-making? Kathy.
For this question, I focused on the district's core values of transparency. I have not received monetary or in-kind donation from political or special interest group. School board is a non-political position, which unfortunately has been politicized by ideologies that tries to seep into our children's curriculum. I recently learned that each school's PTO and other network groups involving in schools and children are independent, separate entities. I wasn't sure if these groups would be considered special interest groups that may sway or influence in the decision-making process of the school board election. I am confident that these individual entities involved in Elmbrook schools already are vigilant to keep away from any appearance of potential conflict of interest that may be construed as possible influence on school board decisions and elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Daniel?
I will not accept any monetary donations from political or special interest groups. As a civically minded individual, I've participated in the democratic process all my life. I believe that voting is an integral part in participating in our democracy. After deciding to run for school board, I have several acquaintances from different community groups that I have been involved with previously who have offered support for my candidacy. Part of being an involved citizen is participating in community groups that are like-minded and have a common goal. Up to date, I have received an in-kind donation from a political group that has amounted to less than $2. The Board of Education is a nonpartisan position. I support the community views and not those of an outside party. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Katie?
I have not accepted any monetary or in-kind donations from political groups or special interest groups. My campaign has been built from individuals wanting to make a difference by volunteering or donating. This is a nonpartisan office. so I'm not concerned with political affiliation. And each board member's vote is their own, which is a big responsibility. However, I have seen special interest groups attempting to influence both elections and board meetings, and that's a red flag. It crowds out quality information about what our stakeholders really want, and it represents a small minority of the actual electorate of Elmbrook. When it comes to board decision-making, I expect our board members to be wise enough to understand the bigger picture, astute enough to know what information is high quality, and courageous enough in voting, even when it feels hard. And I expect that of myself, too. My invitation is for voters to do their homework. As you watch this forum, listen to the responses when we talk about our decision-making processes. Look back at past board meetings or citizens' forum comments. Which candidates are aligned to support the district's priorities and values? I believe our track records, decision-making processes, and values will be enough to cast your vote, regardless of special interest groups. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Glenn?
I'll figure it out by the end of the evening here. With regard to political parties, I have not and will not accept monetary or in-kind donations from political parties. With regard to special interest groups, what is a special interest group? It could be a group such as SOS or FAIR or others. It could just be a group of friends who are like-minded or even an individual. In my personal case, I anticipate spending a modest amount of money on my campaign and will not accept any contributions. However, because of the difficulty in defining a special interest group, I have no objection to candidates who do so. With regard to influence, this is a free country, and I feel that we benefit from the diversity of backgrounds of each individual. My basic philosophy is that, with few exceptions, each individual or group has their own value system and is based on principles that they feel are of value. I look upon each individual as a person of worth. I feel that anyone can have an idea worthy of consideration. For that reason, I try to give attention to the substance of the idea rather than the background or inclinations or organization of the individual. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. And Linda?
No, I have not received donations from political or interest groups. I believe I am the most neutral candidate. I don't have children in the schools. I serve all students of every culture and ability level, just like I served every student as a career educator. I taught grades kindergarten through 12, regular and special needs of all socioeconomic status. I worked in Pulaski Community Schools, which is a rural community. I was employed by Waukesha Schools, Milwaukee Public Schools, Kenosha Unified, and I also taught here at Elmbrook as a long-term sub. The greatest influence to me on the school board is student need-driven, staying within our strategic plan and meeting those goals, and replying to community interests as a whole, not political or special interests. And let it be known that a person can serve on a school board and serve as a state representative at the same time, because one position is partisan and the other is nonpartisan. Both positions represent the community they serve in differently defined roles. I'd like to thank the special interest group that has hosted this forum, the Parent Network Group.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you all five candidates. The next question, the third question, which we will begin with Daniel, is actually question number 9 as was presented. And I will note for the candidates that after this question, each succeeding question will be presented in the order that they were given to you. So this is the last one that will be taken out of order. So question number 3, beginning with Daniel. The board created created a task force on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Their proposal was tabled in the summer of 2021. How do you propose we move forward on the discussion of these topics? Daniel.
Thank you. I would support reopening the task force on diversity, equity, and inclusion to provide better clarity to the board on how the equity principles could be applied in practice. When the proposal was tabled, we did not adequately respond to a significant number of alumni who detailed their experiences, highlighting the gap in understanding what they learned in the Elmbrook district and what the broader world is like. When students join corporate professional workforces, most companies are going to have diversity and inclusion initiatives. Being able to communicate and interact effectively with others will be essential to their success. Some contracts require companies to detail out their diversity policy, along with the makeup of the company. This is a requirement of doing business when applying for government contracts, for example. As a school district, implementing equity principles models behaviors of industry and what they will encounter in their professional careers. I want to share a personal story of what happened to my family when we moved here from Maryland. We moved in May in 2017, and we enrolled our children at the YMCA camp at Brookfield Elementary. One day, the kids came home really upset, and we asked them, what's wrong, what happened? And they mentioned that they had gotten into an altercation with a boy and a girl at the camp. When we asked for more details, it appears that the other children were bullying my oldest, who happens to have a darker skin tone, and they told him that he should, quote, go back to your country. He was born in Maryland, has lived in the U.S., he knows no other home. It is absurd, what they said. No child is born with prejudice. This is a learned skill. We should and can strive to be better than this. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Katie.
The process the district used to create the equity principles was well thought out and sound. I spoke here in support of those principles in May and favored seeing those implemented in that form. Moving forward, there's not a lot I would change. I would like to see those brought back as promised. The longer we wait to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion in our district, the further behind we fall in preparing our students for the world beyond Elmbrook. This work is not new or controversial. I've worked in human resources and leadership over 15 years, and there's not a single day of my adult career that didn't include DEI principles. Best-in-class employers have prioritized DEI work for decades now, and I propose we vote yes to move forward with the district commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. When we do commit, I would like to hear more from our students and from our teachers about what this would mean for them. What do they want to see or gain from this work? Many of us have a shared vision for creating a culture of belonging here. I want to make sure that we take measured steps every year towards closing opportunity and achievement gaps and creating a culture where every staff member and every student feels safe, seen, and whole.
Thank you, Katie. Glenn.
I have personally participated in all 5 community-based and 5 board-based discussions on the topic of equity since it was first introduced to the board in the spring of 2020. The discussion of topics such as personal bias, board policies, and diverse workforce was intriguing to me. I became familiar with terminology such as marginalized identities, dominant culture, culturally relevant teaching and learning that would engage each learner based on their identities and intersections. I became uncomfortable with the theme of these discussions, which seemed to focus on changing the classroom environment to focus on the needs of a student based on the identity group to which he or she belonged. I feel that the use of such labels, whether they be racial, ethnic, political, economic, sexual orientation, or otherwise, is wrong. Wrong because we always also have the tendency to associate additional characteristics with the label. In the meantime, we were and continue to be wrestling with how to recover from the learning loss experienced from COVID. Although we fared better than most districts, our focus needs to continue on identifying the individual students who need help with regaining lost ground. My primary concern is what happens in the classroom. In addition to revising curriculum every 5 years, during my time on the board, we've asked teachers to incorporate 3 major additions to their instructive practices: the use of computer technology in the hands of every student, full inclusion of students with disabilities during the full classroom time, and a workshop model that prescribes the amount of time a teacher spends in general classroom instruction. What will be different in our classrooms?
Glenn, I'm
Comment?
sorry, we have to stop you there. Moving on to Linda.
Some people may want to revisit this topic. The school board did propose to table this issue in the summer of 2021. At a time when board members collectively decide to move forward, I will act appropriately, keeping in mind what measures are agreed upon and/or decided collectively that best fulfill the social, emotional, academic needs of every student without compromising, harming, or strongly influencing the attitudes and beliefs of another. For now, I feel the district needs to prioritize addressing topics such as focusing on improving individual needs in regards to math and improving reading scores. We also need to address the social, emotional, and wellness needs of every student and staff members, and we need to address whatever the superintendent and the board decides needs to be discussed or brought forward on the agenda, and this is determined by our strategic planning and goals.
Thank you, Linda, and we will conclude this question with Kathy.
For this question, I focused on the district's core values of belonging, engagement, and transparency. The board made the right decision last summer to vote no. First off, we need to be clear what equity is. The Elmbrook community supports equality, equal access to opportunity for all based on their ability and readiness. No person's foremost identifier should be the color of their skin, nor made to apologize for it, whether it's white, black, or anything in between. Equity means equal outcomes despite efforts and achievements. The toxic relationship with ICS for equity that started in 2012 has seen graduation rates plummet for children with IEPs from 96 to 67%, and academic proficiency for all students declined since at least 2015. The strive toward equity has been failure for 10 years, as evidenced by Elmbrook's year-over-year academic decline in the last 7 years. In order to promote organic equality, inclusion, and diversity in its truest sense, we must change the culture in Elmbrook by pivoting and start teaching kids how to think and not what to think. Our classrooms must return to a place of academics, free of fear of sharing ideas, to nurture and promote limitless creativity in an environment of respect of each person. Finally, I bring to your attention of a potentially rebranded diversity, equity, and inclusion, now termed as All In for All. We now need to pivot and get back to business of teaching, math, reading, and writing. We need to be honest and open to look at our current deficiencies and fix what is broken now before it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We will now move on to the fourth question, which is question number 2 in your list. We will begin with Katie, and the question is, given all of the issues that arise, how can the board stay focused on district strategy and annual goals and objectives to achieve student success?
There are many issues that arise, and it's an important distinction to make that not all of those issues are within the scope of board decisions. In fact, our district has many policy and practice statements that outline clear paths of resolution that don't require board involvement. If you look at what makes an effective school board member from WASB, which is the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, boards are most effective when they set vision, create policy and practice to support that vision, and provide high-level accountability and leadership. It's a red flag when board members focus on micromanaging district work, or focusing too much time on issues that don't align with the district priorities. There are practices in place to direct specific issues to the best people for resolution, whether it be teachers, counselors, or administrators. So the question is, how can the board stay focused on district strategy? One, by ensuring board meeting time is spent aligning to district strategy and goals. Two, by building in checkpoints to report on district progress for accountability. And also for the community to elect board members who understand their role in staying focused on district strategy and goals. As someone with board experience, I understand the importance of the leadership and oversight role, which allows our teachers, librarians, administrators to handle the individualized needs of students as they arise.
Thank you, Katie. Glenn.
Elmbrook School District does have a strategic plan with both short and long-term goals. This plan has strategies focused on a great place to learn, focused on students, a great place to work, focused on staff, and a great school district that is focused on the community. How do we stay focused? A number of KPIs, or key performance indicators, are established for each of these strategies. Each KPI is assigned to one of 4 committees with a respective scorecard, which is updated and reviewed regularly throughout the year. We have an annual strategic planning process at the board level in the spring that reviews progress against these goals and sets goals for the coming year. Part of the superintendent compensation is tied to these goals. While visiting my daughter recently, they were watching a 1-hour TV program that was focused on things that could be done to improve the horsepower of an engine from 450 to 470 horsepower. They were very excited about the results, although it would have cost in excess of $2,000 to implement the changes. Was it worth it? Whenever new approaches or programs are proposed, we stay focused on strategy by asking the right questions. What problem are we trying to solve? What success has been experienced by other districts who have implemented this? What was the cost and effort as well as the financial to implement this? And finally, just as in the private sector or the car engine question, we need to ask, is it worth it? Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Linda?
The objectives and goals are stated in the district's strategic plan. What needs to be done to achieve student success is carry out a plan of action to apply how to successfully obtain these goals. The teacher and leadership team need to evaluate the effectiveness or ineffectiveness of what works and what doesn't, and identify the root cause of why the achievement in math, reading, and language arts continues to decline, and devise an effective strategy to meet goals that will close the achievement gap. We need to hold the administrators and leadership teams accountable to improving the achievement scores on the state-mandated 3rd and 8th grade tests. The district should not rely on MAP scores and surveys solely to evaluate if the district strategies are met or if student achievement is occurring. Although benchmark districts provide comparison data, we need to focus with a greater emphasis on Elmbrook's strategic goals and objectives and evaluate what's working, what's not working, take action, readjust if it's not working, and make a different strategy in order to achieve student success.
Thank you, Linda. Kathy?
For this question, I focused on the district's core values of excellence, transparency, and sustainability. Given all the issues that arise, the board's focus and responsibility is to provide oversight, holding the district administration and staff accountable to achieve their goals, annual goals, and objectives regarding student success. In providing such oversight, the board should have some level of understanding in how we arrive at the numbers we are seeing. The board should know these measures with confidence that the administration and the staff are consistently obtaining and using baseline scores across grades and metrics, and it currently is not, in order to accurately capture the measure of student growth. It is a job of the school board to ensure the administration is put to task in achieving district strategy and annual goals. School board answers to the voters, not to the administration. A root cause analysis is needed to deep dive into causes of continued decline in academics. My run for the school board is to get to the heart of the problem to course correct before it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And Daniel.
I believe the way that the Board of Education is structured is well suited to handle a variety of tactical issues that support the overall strategic annual plan. The committee structure allows for simultaneous discussions, and they can really dig in and understand the details and background of every issue. We need to engage the community as these strategic goals are formulated so we can have buy-in early in the process to ensure a successful outcome. A lot of time and effort is spent converging on these strategic initiatives, and the board can keep focused by always coming back on how the current discussion relates to its strategic goals. We need to ensure that our qualified professionals have the tools and resources to implement the district's vision set for the board, empower them to execute, and don't micromanage our teachers and staff so that the board can focus on the long-term vision for the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. We will now move to the fifth question this evening, which is question number 3 in your outline. We will begin with Glenn. Question number 5 is, there are signs that COVID will be part of our everyday lives for quite a while. What resources will drive your decision-making regarding Elmbrook's response to COVID mitigation and the promotion of health and well-being in our schools?
Over the past 2 years, as more information becomes available, recommendations changed, some of them dramatically. Mass effectiveness is a case in point. We continue to get conflicting studies. I served on the medical advisory board of physicians and Elmbrook parents that advised the district regarding appropriate mitigation practices. Since the arrival of COVID, I've been concerned that we did not adequately understand the potential academic consequences of these actions. As a responsible board member, I felt we needed to look at the entire picture and determine the proper balance between health and educational concerns. Our first academic results were available last summer, and they showed that in a number of areas, student progress during the 2021 school year was significantly less than pre-COVID. The good news was that the loss of learning in Elmbrook was about half that experienced in districts across the country. So what resources will drive my decision-making process? Going forward, these will be my guiding principles. Number 1, to recognize COVID as a fact of life. We need to live with it. Should we treat it any differently than we do the seasonal flu? I don't know the answer to that. I want to get back to normal as quickly as possible, giving great focus to instruction practices relative to mitigation practices. I think asking, "How are you doing?" survey questions to students will help us zero in on individuals needing support rather than a shotgun approach. And in all cases, we should require data in determining what our mitigation practices will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Linda?
I would use the same resources to drive decision-making regarding Elmbrook's response to promote health and well-being in our schools, addressing concerns and issues that arise the same way I do other things. I listen to the stakeholders, parents, and families. Then I review the fact-based information regarding COVID, considering the needs of all stakeholders, including the well-being of students to be paramount. I work collaboratively with the superintendent and the board members toward an appropriate solution. I'm very proud to say that the Elmbrook School District was successful in collectively devising a workable solution to meet the needs and desires of the community by staying open during the COVID challenge. As a member of the Finance and Operation Committee, we worked diligently and met every week to approve whatever financial things were necessary on a weekly basis to implement the safety equipment that was necessary to put into the schools to keep the children safe. We were providing family choice. We remained staying flexible and responsive to families and children's as things arise, while addressing every medical precaution to keep the student body and the staff protected and healthy.
Thank you, Linda. Kathy.
For this question, I focused on the district's core values of wellness, sustainability, and innovation. First, the resources that will drive my decision-making regarding Elmbrook's response to COVID mitigation will be based on science. One specific source is the FDA enforcement policy for face mask and respirator under General Device Labeling Requirement 21 CFR 801, instruction for use. What this means is that mask manufacturer must have instruction for use for COVID. Secondly, CDC would be another resource which has available statistics and recommendations that are recommendations only. I remember watching Senate hearing of Dr. Walensky in front of the Senate. She was asked repeated times if she will be supporting the mandates of organizations. And Dr. Walensky repeatedly answered that CDC stand is a recommendation only and does not support or direct mandates. So when quoting CDC, it would be in the best interest of the district to recommend using applicable data and not entertain any form of mandates, as it may become another source of liability to the Elmbrook school taxpayers. Therefore, mask mandate is not supported by these facts. Thirdly, the recent science brought forth by physicians who have treated COVID patients attested to effectiveness of early treatment and natural immunity should also be considered into agile decisions of this process. If we can be open to these facts and that I've shared, it will lead to a simplified choice of health decisions that are a matter of personal freedom, to which I am confident it will result in the promotion of health and well-being in our schools, and remembering that we are not a hospital, but a place of education. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Daniel?
I believe we need to rely on the experts to guide our decisions in relation to what mitigations are appropriate to take. We teach our children critical thinking, to understand how to find a primary source of information, to cite their sources. We as adults need to model what we teach. We need to ensure that when making a decision that we leverage trustworthy sources of information. If this pandemic has shown us anything, is that the only constant is change. We need to ensure that we remain agile and are able to adapt. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. There are multiple mitigations that we could implement depending on what the circumstances dictate. Personally, for me, one of the highlights of the district's response to COVID has been the testing program that's been implemented. It's accessible, fast, and free for students and their families. This has been very useful in limiting the spread of disease by quickly identifying potential infections. The Omicron wave has started receding, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we're heading for a time where COVID is endemic, like the flu, where we have optional, seasonal protective measures that we can adopt. More importantly, we need to use this pandemic as a teaching moment. We don't know where the next challenge to our community is going to come from, but the tools and processes that we implement today will help us deal with our next challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And Katie.
I know most of us have a shared goal here, which is to keep schools open safely. And that means that we need enough kids healthy and in school, and we need enough staff to teach. Elmbrook was overall quite successful last year at keeping schools open safely. However, we haven't used some of the same methods this year. I would use medical professionals' input to drive decision-making, either continuing the medical advisory board model or simply using the local expertise right here at Children's Hospital, which is specific to the needs of local K-12 kids. I would use local case data and trends to make more flexible and proactive decisions if and when we need to make adjustments to our mitigations. I support flexibility to add short-term mitigations or remove them when necessary, and with a clear exit strategy to return to baseline. When new information comes out, let's adjust. The goal is to keep the schools open, and we need teachers and students healthy for that to happen. To promote health and well-being in our schools, I support the board's vote to give staff members additional COVID-related sick days. Teachers don't have to worry about returning before they're well or losing pay. I think we need to continue to focus on emotional well-being toll for our staff, especially when they've been most stretched with substitute shortages. The district measures staff engagement and a work-life balance index as part of the district goals. This also means leaning into the social and emotional resources that we can provide our students, ensuring school counselors are available to identify and support students' needs, and building a culture of belonging. Creating personal connections between and with our students is one of the best things that we can do to support their well-being and their learning goals.
Thank you, Katie. We are halfway through the 10 questions. I want to thank and salute each candidate for respecting the timelines. You're making my job easy, and you're obviously all well prepared, so thank you again. The sixth question, which we will begin with Linda, is question number 7 as it appears on your list. Again, from this point on, we will be in order. And here's the question. Our community benefits from the excellent reputation of our schools. How does a school board balance the need to provide a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer burden? Linda.
Elmbrook School District has held a reputation noted for excellence and high achievement recognition reported by state school ratings. This has made Elmbrook a destination district for former residents to return and families seeking a quality education. Along with that, it also brings new businesses and leaders into the community. With stable and/or increased enrollment, the taxpayers benefit. Property values remain steady or increase, accompanied with a lower tax rate. During my appointment on the Finance and Operation Committee, we diligently planned for future expenditures. Evaluating by prioritizing requests and needs where available funds should be distributed. We took bids for large projects, such as the administration building, which we are now in, East High School library renovations also. We held weekly meetings to approve emergency medical supplies and equipment necessary to provide students access to a safe, healthy learning environment. These expenditures, the athletic field and court areas, the new administration building, and offering 2 outdoor graduation ceremonies, to name a few, collectively benefit the schools and taxpayers. That is money well spent.
Thank you, Linda. Kathy.
For this question, I focused on the district's core value of transparency and excellence. When looking at 2021 Elmbrook MAP results and winter 2021 MAP updates for elementary, right here, I question if we indeed have an excellent quality education. I see a red flag reviewing just these 2 documents. 2019 MAP winter trend achievement level is missing altogether. I noticed they're missing 2019 and 2020 fall baselines. How do we measure growth without baselines? If the rationale was because COVID in 2020, I would think that it would be even more critical to measure 2020 fall to make sure that we have not lost any growth from spring 2020. So with significant decline at the elementary level, it is only a matter of time until high school graduates follow suit as these kids enter high school or losing families to other districts and private schools, which will eventually impact the value of our community, which is not too far distance. During last week's Teaching and Learning Committee, 4K was discussed, and they did not have a baseline in the fall for the only metric, which is identifying capital letters. As it stands today, 4K is at 56%, which is no meaning without a baseline. So the reason given in the TLC is because it might be too stressful to test the kids first 3 weeks of school. So school district receives over $100 million per year in tax money, in addition to $9.7 million in COVID ESSER 1 and 2 funds, now with $4.7 million in additional anticipated fund for the ESSER 3. Governor CFR funds were received, and recently FEMA grants were received, and $197,000 with COVID. If it would behoove us to examine the district's stewardship of the funds before we discuss local before we discuss the local taxpayer burden. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Daniel?
When my family and I moved to Wisconsin almost 5 years ago now, the first item on the wish list for a new home was good schools. We would have preferred a home that was built more recently, but in Brookfield, that's really not that common. While most of the surrounding districts had a great reputation and good scores, none were as good as Elmbrook. I know personally of 2 other families that chose to move to Brookfield specifically because of the schools, and they come from neighboring cities, not from out of state. I'm sure there are many more. We are a destination district, a place where people have pride to live in. Our school district is partly supported by our property taxes. Currently, approximately 56% of our property taxes go to supplement the state aid for our school budget. Those funds provide the ability for our schools to be top ranked in the state. There are other side benefits as well outside of a good place to educate our children. Good public facilities encourage the formation of clubs and after-school activities. These year-round activities generate traffic for local businesses. Eventually, when you do sell your home, you'll also benefit from an increased appreciation of your value in comparisons with homes that are not in school districts that are highly ranked as ours. We must always be mindful of the budget and how we choose to allocate our limited resources. I believe the board has done a good job maintaining fiscal responsibility and being a good steward over taxpayer dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Katie?
I believe Elmbrook is doing both. We are strong in both academic success and fiscal responsibility. The board is very committed to maintaining both of those, and I will support those to continue. The mill rate, or what you are paying for Elmbrook schools in your property taxes, is the lowest it's been in years. The community largely understands the importance of funding the schools. As I've talked with taxpayers, I've heard that sentiment often. Our job is to continue to provide best-in-class education and maintain the strong fiscal responsibility. The district's financial approach has been very measured, and that consistent management allows us to focus more time on the best-in-class education. That's a more complex task with more unknowns. The idea of best-in-class education, to me, also means value, that Elmbrook provides an exceptional value. And the best value is providing well-rounded readiness for our kids by the time they graduate. That means academic readiness, strong arts programs, sports teams, co-curricular opportunities that are meaningful for our students' diverse interests, rather. That means a laser focus on literacy. That means launch and advanced placement, 4K and consistent support for students with IEPs. And that means that we raise resilient, caring, and quality citizens ready to improve the wide world beyond Elmbrook. That, to me, sounds like an incredible value and a best-in-class education. And I think taxpayers in Elmbrook appreciate value too.
Thank you, Katie. And Glenn, to conclude this question.
I feel Elmbrook's reputation is well-deserved. This last year, of over 400 school districts in Wisconsin, Elmbrook had the 3rd highest score on the state report card, the 2nd highest ACT scores in the state, and we were ranked #1 in the state by niche.com. In addition, students can and do choose to participate in 40 athletic teams and 65 clubs, drama, music, and other areas of particular interest. This is a 2-part question related to finance. First, with regard to responding to the local taxpayer burden, it's important to understand that the Board of Education has effectively no control over property taxes, our major source of revenue. Every 2 years, the Wisconsin State Legislature determines the amount per student to be received by each district, as well as the percentage of that property tax that's to be paid by the taxpayer. The Board of Education has no control over what those taxes will be. In this case, we differ from the private sector. If we feel more funds are needed, we cannot raise prices to do so. With regard to the investment in education, Since we cannot raise revenue, the board must focus on minimizing expenses that do not directly impact the classroom. During my service on the board actions include closing an elementary school, elimination of non-resident enrollment, a consumer-driven healthcare plan, and energy expenses that are lower than 15 years ago. These board actions have resulted in a combined cost avoidance of approximately $7.6 million per year. Had we not done this, it would have been necessary to lay off 76 teachers, resulting in larger class sizes.
I need to stop you there, Glenn. I'm sorry. Let's see, we began with Linda, so that concludes the sixth question. Question number 7, which will begin with Kathy, is this. The district has a goal to be a great place to work. What, if anything, should be done to enhance the hiring and retention of excellent staff to advance this goal?
For this question, I focus on the district's core value of wellness, sustainability, belonging, engagement, transparency, innovation, and excellence. A great place to work encompasses all these core values that must be the core essence of organic engagement that promotes belonging in a safe environment where innovation is encouraged without fear of sharing ideas. It takes a lot of work, honesty, commitment, and courage, and definitely is not created by artificial quotas categorized by demographic and race, color, age, sex, gender, national origin, genetic information, according to EEOC. I have built one of the most organic, diverse team in my careers. It wasn't because I was trying to follow a checkbox or quota. It was based on their ability, their content of character, and their qualification, which many whom I have groomed and mentored and put them in stretch goals to continue for their growth and promotion. Here are my suggestions if it's not already in place. Number 1, professional development that is directly related to teachers' job functions so that they're more motivated to teach it. Accountability that isn't solely dependent on administration that only may not be able to control their personal bias. Number 3, having leadership that will look at situations with teachers, students, and parents based on facts and not react to emotions. And then having the administration's role being having the well-being of the teachers in mind as priority. And number 4, an environment where leadership is strong, that they're able to take personal constructive criticism and not hold grudges or brush it off. And finally, having a district leadership who can face real issues and seek long-term solutions and less of reacting to emotions with PR at its priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Daniel?
The challenges of hiring and retention are not unique to Elmbrook. Every company grapples with the same issues. At my company, we have hired an incredible number of employees in the last year and a half. Part of what attracts new hires is the culture and the reputation as a market leader and a good place to work. We need to model what talent teams do in the corporate world when looking at strategies for hiring and retention. We should continue to benchmark our benefits package in comparison with other high-performing districts in the state to ensure that we can continue to attract and retain top talent. The district should have a goal to ensure that the teaching staff mirrors the students' demographics. We need to trust in the educators and staff that we hired, that they are competent and capable of executing the job that they were hired for. And lastly, we also need to provide the resources necessary for these professionals to do their job. When we lose a long-term employee with a lot of experience to a neighboring district because that funding was cut, that is a big loss for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Katie?
Retention of our staff is number 1. Taking care of the people we have means they stay and we hire less. In order to retain our talented staff, we need to provide the resources needed to do their job well, such as enough prep time, support with quality curriculum and lesson plans, and meaningful professional development. We need to continue to build a culture of belonging where our staff feel safe, trusted, seen, and heard. When our staff feels connected and whole, they have more capacity to help our students feel safe, seen, and whole too. And our staff needs to hear, trust, and care for their experience. We recruited and hired them for their talents. Now we need to trust in their work and care about what their daily experience entails. That's on us, actually, as a community. That's a call to action for all of us to be collaborators, to keep our teachers in love with teaching at Elmbrook. When we do need to hire, we must be actively searching for a more diverse workforce. As of last year, 6% of all staff members identified as a person of color, and that's 25% less than our student population. It means we have to search further, cast a wider net. It's not easy work. And we need a culture of belonging that welcomes them when they get here. We do have a great place to work, and each of our actions at the board level or individual level sends signals to our educators whether or not this is a great place to work, if they are cared for and trusted to do a great job, and if this is a safe place to build their career. Every one of those signals matter.
Thank you, Katie. Glenn?
Fortunately, Elmbrook is recognized as a go-to district for potential employees. It's not uncommon to have more than 100 individuals apply for the majority of open positions in the district. Why is this the case? Number one, Elmbrook's salaries and benefits rank in the top 10% of districts in southeast Wisconsin. We also have demographics that are very favorable. We have supportive families and students who want to be in class and take advantage of the Elmbrook opportunities. We have very few students who are absent more than 10% of the time, the accepted trigger for identifying those students who may need interventions. The board does not take these advantages for granted, however. We do perform an annual employee survey to determine opportunities for improvement. The most recent survey showed that employee satisfaction ranked at or above the national average in 10 of 15 categories. 2 areas were chosen for improvement. First was compensation. We did a benchmarking survey for the various work categories and made salary adjustments that would move employees to the upper quartile of their peers in other districts. In addition, an internal audit was also performed, uncovering some inequities within the district where teachers with comparable experience and skills were at different compensation levels. These were also adjusted. The second area was work-life balance. Our strategic plan was updated last summer to include the goal, by April of 2022, deploy 3 wellness strategies that benefit our staff. We care about our employees.
Thank you, Glenn. And for the final answer to the 7th question, Linda.
The district overall hires well-qualified, competent teachers and personnel. A few persons who make poor decisions are not representative of the organization as a whole. During the hiring process, it would be beneficial to cast a wider net to get a broader candidate pool to select from. Add some questions during the hiring process related to appropriate postings on technology or appropriate student-teacher relationships and around emotional intelligence, which is the #1 predictor of success in every workplace. A Google survey administered through the district provides a snapshot of the work environment. I have suggested WellM personnel to offer paper surveys where teachers and staff can write out an open comment feedback in written form. One strategy to consider for retention would be to set up a time for teachers and staff to submit in writing or talk to a board member centered on the topic, a great place to work. A board member could collect the responses submitted in a box that's provided or write out what was verbally told to them and put that in the box at each school. The board member would not be involved if they had children at that school or a conflict of interest. Then the board members could meet and review the comments with the superintendent and develop an action plan to address how to retain and keep teachers within the workplace and keep a well staff. Every day, they need to provide an environment that people want to return to, feel comfortable in, and are passionate about.
Okay, thank you, Linda. We now move to question number 8, which is question number 11 on your list, and we will begin with Daniel. The question is, how will you best communicate and be accessible to your constituency?
There are multiple ways to communicate with our constituency. The first is at board committee meetings. Residents and stakeholders within the district can come to voice concern and opinions and provide feedback directly to the entire board. The second way would be through email, where an offline discussion can happen and concerns can be relayed where there either isn't the opportunity or time doing regular business. Sometimes there will most likely be a significant number of emails sent to board members, especially when discussing issues that we all care about. It's important to acknowledge these emails so that people understand that you've had a chance to look at them and accepted their opinions and their feedback. If you are a current parent in the district, you receive weekly newsletters from the schools. This keeps you informed on what's going on at the school level. While all of the board meetings and content are online, the minutes of the meetings do not contain enough information to give context to the issues discussed. Citizens can watch the board meetings, but few have time to go through hours of video. I propose creating a quarterly newsletter that would be opt-in through the website, where summaries of decision and contextual information of the business of the board can be presented and disseminated to a larger audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Katie?
There are many different stakeholders in the district, and I'm really excited about the opportunity to visit and connect with schools to see some of the magic in action. To see students and teachers in their element and hear directly from them is really amazing. I hope I can sit in on some of the cool high school clubs that we didn't have when I was in high school. Just being present in the district, whether it's through volunteering as a launch mentor, as an Elmbrook Education Foundation board member, or as a math game mom, it's life-giving. You attend one of the school musicals or a fun run, and it has been transformative for me in understanding what a special thing we have going on here. I'm committed to building strong working relationships with district administrators so that we can ask questions, learn from each other, and keep the district moving forward. Of course, I will always welcome feedback from parents. It's an easy phone call or email. I know I greatly appreciated that a board member took our phone call when my husband and I were weighing the difficult decision of in-person or virtual learning for our then kindergartner entering the district in 2020. I know many parents are interested in sharing their feedback and want to feel heard in the process. I will do my best to acknowledge their feedback and ask questions to learn more about their viewpoints when possible. I would like the board to continue to seek more effective and safe ways for all of our stakeholders to feel comfortable sharing comments. I will always make it a priority to be connected with the needs and feedback of the stakeholders. And my hope is all stakeholders know that I will handle their feedback with care.
Thank you, Katie. Glenn?
Had we been allowed a fourth priority, mine would have been community engagement. I consider constituency input to be an essential element of being an informed board member. I feel grateful that any time a constituent takes the time to share a concern or opinion with me. They deserve a response, and I encourage them to contact me. We do hold a citizens forum at the start of every board meeting where time is set aside for community input, where they may comment on any item that is not on the agenda. They are later provided the same opportunity for each agenda item under discussion. I strongly support this practice and have learned things that might not have come through other channels. I feel I'm a good listener. I have the good fortune of being retired, and so I have had the luxury of being able to meet individually or with groups of constituents. I respond to all phone calls. I try to respond to all emails, but there are occasions when the number of them makes it infeasible for me to do so. As mentioned earlier, I treasure the opportunity to visit the schools every year and to be in so many classrooms to understand better what's going on in the classroom. And finally, for those who wish to contact me, contact information can be found at the website glennallgaier.com.
Thank you, Glenn. Linda?
How do I communicate and be accessible? I am and will continue to correspond and interact and be available to the community. I do this by listening and responding to their concerns through email, in-person conversations, phone calls, telephone. I'm visibly present. I attend many school functions and many community events and school-sponsored activities and celebrations, such as the senior high school graduation, the honors, the DARE graduation, author visits, and Thanksgiving dinner with the seniors over at Central, and recently student award, which was presented by the U.S. Congressman Scott Fitzgerald, in which I was the sole school board member in attendance. I listen to concerns and direct them to persons or channels that can assist with a specific issue. Most importantly, I represent the community and at board meetings, and I listen to their concerns, and I voice my concerns based on what they tell me through discussions that reflect their voice. I will continue to be available, and I'm proud to be a member of this community that is involved in every aspect possible.
Thanks, Linda. And for the final response to question number 8, Kathy.
When Linda told me about that visit, I was so jealous. I wanted to go with her. I think that is such a privilege as a board member to be able to wear the actions happening. So for this question, I focused on the district's core values of engagement and transparency. If elected to the board, I will best communicate and be accessible with our constituency, with my district email, and then citizen forum at board meetings. I also understand that Elmbrook School Board has a cell phone number listed, so that will be also an availability. I do strive to acknowledge receipts of all communication and very cognizant of your expectation to receive a response, so you know that you have been heard. I strongly support our citizen forum structure as it provides transparency and face-to-face engagement, which promotes precision, effectiveness, and efficiency. In my opinion, it would be beneficial to the community to allow a longer citizen forum to regain the community's trust and confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We move to the 9th question, which is question number 12 on your list. We will begin with Katie. The question is, why is public education important to you personally?
Growing up in public schools and with an educator as my mom, I'm a huge advocate for public education. My mom was a special education teacher turned school psychologist, and I grew up in the Racine Unified School District as an honor student, varsity athlete, and a musician. School is so many things to our kids. An adult who cares, a secure meal, a place where kids love to learn, a place to connect and belong and make friends for life. It can open doors and create an academic foundation that sets students up for the wide world. For me personally, my most formative experiences in school were in the choir room, on the stage, and in the pool. I had a teacher who sparked an interest in economics that turned into a college major in finance. Spending preschool through 12th grade with one of my lifelong friends. We are incredibly lucky to be in a well-resourced public school district. Elmbrook does so many things well, and there are areas we can move from good to great. Our kids are in school more than they are home for waking hours. I think beyond what our responsibility might be and ask, what is our opportunity? What is possible? And because we are a well-managed, fiscally responsible district, a lot is possible. My personal story shows what's great about public education, and I take the responsibility and the opportunity of leading a public school system to heart.
Thank you, Katie. Glenn.
I love this country, and I feel very grateful and privileged to live in the United States of America. I feel there are two foundational principles that contribute to this greatness. Our Constitution, which I feel is inspired of God, and our public education system. The United States of America being the first country in the world to make education publicly available to all students. Here in Elmbrook, we are the beneficiaries of that legacy. As many of you, we chose Brookfield because of the Elmbrook School District. We moved here from San Diego, California, where, although Cindy had been deeply engaged with the schools, she was required to make an appointment if she wanted to spend 15 minutes with the principal. That is contrasted with our experience when I first came with Cindy to the Milwaukee area for a job interview trip. While I went through the interview process, Cindy visited Hillside Elementary School. With no previous appointment, she walked into the school asking if she could look around. It resulted in a 2-hour personal tour by Mr. Netzel, the school principal. When we got together that evening, Cindy's first comment was, "I feel like I've died and gone to heaven." The mission of the School District of Elmbrook is to educate and inspire every student to think, to learn, and to succeed in life, college, and career. Since moving here, our 5 youngest children are evidence of the mission accomplished in this regard. I'm now in a position to give back to the district and hope you will give me the opportunity to continue to do so.
Thank you, Glenn. Linda.
Why is public education important to me? I think it's very evident, my commitment to public education. I first got my bachelor's and master's in education. I've been a lifelong teacher. That was been my career. I taught at every single grade level, kindergarten through 12, in many different communities. And every student I taught was also a reading student of mine. I'm very proud to say that no matter where they started, they all ended up at least at a 6th grade or better level, which is proficiency level for students who are challenged readers, I should say. And I taught kids who had dyslexia, so I'm very proud of that. All of my students learned their basic math facts, and I'm very proud to say that all of my students, when I taught at Kenosha Unified, and it was a special needs class, they all learned to memorize the preamble of the Constitution. So my passion for public education comes out in everything I do. The students of today are the leaders and entrepreneurs and business owners and workforce of tomorrow. And education is their pathway to success. And the way to that is a good education, which no one can ever take away from you once you have knowledge. Every person has the desire to be accepted by peers and adults and develop a good sense of self, and that has always been my passion, and I found the means to that was through a public education.
Thanks, Linda. Kathy?
For this question, I focus on district's core value of excellence. Public education is important to me because I am its success story through and through. My parents packed up everything they owned with 3 of my siblings from South Korea to Chicago in 1982 to provide us a better education and the American dream. Hard work, persistence, and personal accountability became the foundation of our family's success. Nothing was easy in early years as we learned English and assimilated into rich American melting pot of various ethnicity, background, and life experience. We created our true American dreams. It was not because I was a privileged Asian girl, an elevated minority, that I was told by another colleague, a person of color, because which I found that I have been categorized as a person of color by critical race theory ICS thought leaders. My parents worked long hours. They couldn't help me with homework or come to parent-teacher conference because of language barriers, and they worked long hours. My 3 siblings and I all went to college supporting ourselves. It wasn't because I was an elevated minority having privilege. As I have told my children, I am not good at math. I'm not a fan of math, and please don't make me take trig again. However, I know my data and statistics and how to practically apply it to continuous improvement. I never demanded straight A's from my children nor Ivy Leagues, because what is prescribed best isn't always what's best for everybody. One size does not fit all. However, I do expect ownership, personal accountability, giving at their best to their ability to get back up every single time with stronger resolve, which they understand this so well as athletes, and to always be a person of value and a hope for others. For these reasons, how can I not demand anything but excellence in our public education system? Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. And for the final response to question number 9, Daniel.
What makes the United States a great country? I think the belief in our country as a constitutional democracy is one of its greatest strengths. In a nation built of immigrants, public schools were and still are a major force in assimilating disparate peoples into a common culture. A lot of people came to this country from places with very different forms of government, places where censorship of ideas is common, where freedom of expression is limited, and there is no path for citizens to change their government. Schools don't only teach about academics. They prepare students for their next step in life, be it for workforce or higher education. They teach students how to be an informed and engaged citizen, and lastly, how to achieve personal fulfillment. Civics are a cornerstone of our democracy. We teach our students how to engage with government through classroom instruction, discussion of current events, and simulations of our democratic processes, like debate teams, mock trials, voting, among others. Public schools also give you the opportunity to discover your interest. In most countries, school curriculum is fixed. In Brazil, for example, there are almost no electives, and in most cases, your choice may only come down to what type of foreign language do you study. It is amazing that we offer such an array of electives that allow our students to explore their interest and start to formulate a path for their careers while in high school. I remember when my wife and I toured Brookfield Central, we came out of that tour and said, oh my God, can we go back to high school? Because this is awesome. Public schools should also teach you how to live a full life, how to enrich every student's lives and develop their cultural traits. These take form of building character, transmitting our cultural ideas and stories, basically raise good human beings. Understanding how the world works and how to interact with people is also a fundamental component of education. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. We will now proceed to the last of this evening's questions. It is question number 13 on your list, and we'll begin with Glenn. The question is, there is a clear desire amongst members of the community to be heard by the board. What is your process for evaluating contributions from people with differing viewpoints in your decision-making?
I feel community input is essential, and community members deserve to be heard. I'll focus my comments on the citizens forum that's held as part of our board meeting. I have learned things in those discussions that might not have come through normal channels. I'm reluctant to make major changes and strongly support the current practices. I feel any person, regardless of station in life, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender preference, education, profession, life experience, political viewpoint, religion, and so forth, can have a good idea. Whether I agree or disagree, they should be treated with respect. We do have a process for parent or community members to address concerns that progresses from the teacher to the principal to the administration to the board. I would hope that all would follow that process. However, I also recognize there may be occasions where this is not practical, and am comfortable with some matters coming directly to the board. On occasion, the number of people wishing to speak may be so large that the board cannot effectively conduct its regular business within a reasonable amount of time. Should that occur, and it has, I support holding separate listening sessions such as have been held on the subject of closing a school or equity. With regard to my process for evaluating contributions, I focus on the substance of what a person has to say and not necessarily who that person is.
Thank you, Glenn. Linda?
I thought that was a question that was very much similar to a previous question, which said, how are we available and accessible? I kind of covered a lot of that in that question also. I attend and I know what the concerns of the constituents are. But as far as how do I handle it, I do bring good questions to the board at every board meeting, and that reflect the concerns of the constituents, the stakeholders, the families, the staff, and the students. I engage in tough discussions at board level and tough discussions with the constituents as we meet in-person conversations or via telephone or at community events. I provide suggestions, sometimes I think way out of the box, and I think that's something that I can contribute that is unique in itself. I'm a common sense person with common sense approach to problems, and I think that even the smallest issue that comes to my attention is just as important as a major issue that, say, 20 or more people want to be addressed. Even if it's one concern of one person, it needs to be looked into, addressed, discussed, and find some type of happy medium. I do like to work collectively with board members, and I think the good thing about our board is that we have a wide variety of backgrounds currently, and I am the only educator that was a teacher in the classroom, so I bring forth things in consideration from that lens. And like I said before, I thought that was kind of an overlap
Thank you,
of
Linda.
a previous
We need
question.
to stop you there. Kathy?
For this question, I focused on the district's core values of engagement and transparency. My process of evaluating contribution from people with differing viewpoints in making my decision is to gather information from their perspective and ensure it is compatible with my oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution, Wisconsin Constitution, and its laws as a school board member. As a nurse and director of operations, I have worked with people with various opinions across every aspect of the organizational matrix. I collaborate with empathy and an analytical mind to develop the best solution for the problem. I believe that it is more important to have the best solution versus who comes up with the solution. We win or lose together as a team, and that team is us here in Elmbrook School District. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy. Daniel?
As we discuss issues that members of the community are passionate about, we're bound to have differences of opinion on how to proceed. I believe it's important to keep an open mind and try to understand where the core issues are coming from so that we may try to find and reach consensus. One of the things that we teach our children in school is always to cite your sources. Any paper they write needs to have proper sources. And our teachers tell them to shy away from places like Wikipedia and YouTube as they're not considered good sources of truth. I will apply the same principles to a discussion of different viewpoints. What are the sources of information being brought? Are these sources of information credible? Have they been peer reviewed? Are they generally accepted practices? In my decision making, knowing that an opinion is backed by facts will carry more weight than one that is embraced by unsupported data. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. And for the final response to the final question, Katie?
Just to clarify the question for anyone watching, it's really asking about our process for evaluating. I know feeling heard is really important. And so I want to hear from students and from educators and, of course, from parents. Whenever possible, I want to hear from the people closest to the issue at hand with first-person experience to share. I always evaluate the source of data. Is it peer-reviewed or a credible quality source? I also seek out varied viewpoints by asking questions like, how would someone with the opposite viewpoint see it? What's missing? What are we not seeing? And what are unforeseen consequences? And I ultimately relate it back to the district values and priorities. Does this further those? This gives me a 360-degree look at what the impact is on decisions, so I may choose an option that best meets the needs of our students. Regardless of the decision, I think an important part of the process is to close the loop on communication with people who are part of the discussion. Whenever possible, I want to communicate back an outcome to interested parties and encourage that communication and transparency from the board. That says, I hear you. I have considered it, even if the outcome wasn't what they hoped. I'd like to see us find a better way to manage feedback from the community. I think most stakeholders aren't getting what they need out of it. Despite a high volume of feedback, I think we're missing a lot of voices who don't feel safe speaking up, and the people providing feedback don't often feel heard. Improving the feedback process would mean better decision-making for the board.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you, candidates. That does conclude the Q&A portion of this evening's proceedings. We are slightly ahead of schedule, and that is because of the amount of preparation you each have put into tonight. So I again salute you for doing that. I'm going to editorialize for just a brief few seconds. I want to say to the community and to the audience, it takes courage for each of these individuals to put themselves out there, to get in front of a group of people in a community at large and express views on difficult topics in which we are all heavily invested. So I thank and salute each one of you for doing so. Well done. We will end with closing remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks, and just as a reminder, that's about half the time you've had to this point, so keep that in mind. We will begin with Linda, each candidate, and we will move through from that point. So with that being said, closing statements, beginning with Linda.
Thank you to all who attended tonight's meeting and to those who are going to be viewing it in the future. Thanks to the Elmbrook School Parent Network for hosting this event and Tom Gill for moderating it. I ask you to exercise your rights and privileges as a citizen and go to the polls on Election Day and hopefully vote for me. Vote for the only person on the board who has classroom experience, who's been an educator and has a lifelong passion for learning, and who can offer some common sense decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Kathy.
Well, thank you again for the forum. It was actually quite enjoyable, and thank you, Tom, for moderating. I am running for the school board to ensure that Chicago's past and present doesn't become Elmbrook's future without showmanship. I see so much potential in this community and all the goodness and kindness that I have experienced during last few weeks of my campaign. And at the same time, I received much attention this past few weeks. As a person of minority-looking American, I thought that my candidacy would be celebrated across the district. We as a community is standing at a crossroad to decide what we want our legacy to be for our children. I am confident Elmbrook kids will win with Kathy Lim. So now let's go vote.
Thank you, Kathy. Daniel?
I'm a father of 2 children currently in the district, so I have a vested interest and deeply personal interest as well in the performance of our schools. Having both a middle school and high school student gives me a real-time view of how students benefit from the great opportunities, both academic and extracurricular, that are available in Elmbrook. My work with Launch allows me to interact with many other students as they explore career paths to test out their areas of interest. In addition, at my workplace, I engage with many recent graduates and younger employees, and I can observe how prepared they are for today's workforce. I believe one of my greatest strengths is my approach to problem solving, using a data-driven process backed up with credible primary sources, when making decisions that affect our student and staff. We all want our kids to be safe. We want them to belong. We want them to reach the potential and be prepared for a successful, fulfilled future. We may disagree on how to get there, but I believe we share the same common objectives. If elected, I'll work diligently to ensure continuous improvement in our school district. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. Katie.
If I look toward 2033, that's right, that's when my oldest child graduates high school, the vision I have for our kids is not guaranteed. I choose to be an active participant in creating a bright future for our kids. And I genuinely care about our kids. I trust and respect our educators who are relentless in their support of our students. I am running for school board to help realize this vision for our schools. I have and will continue to work hard for it. I am all in. I will be that breath of fresh air, fresh ideas, and I will bring an approach of excellence, transparency, and belonging. Our district needs a level-headed, strategic voice that reflects what students and parents need now and to be ready for the future. I ask for your vote for the at-large seat on April 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And Glenn.
Saving the best till last. Elmbrook is an excellent school district. I believe we all share the common goal of wanting the best educational experience for our children. In the past, we resolved differences by finding sufficient mutual common ground and compromise. Unfortunately, sharp partisan differences are dividing our nation and are spilling over into our community. I'm not a current parent, but I am a parent and feel I have a good understanding of what is needed for Elmbrook to be the gold standard in Wisconsin. When I cast my ballot, I've yet to find the perfect candidate, so I vote for the candidate who best matches my interests. While I hope you vote for me, my encouragement would be that you vote for the individual who, on the whole, best matches your expectations. That is what makes this country great.
Okay, that concludes this evening's forum. I just want to thank the Susan and the EPLC. It was my pleasure and certainly my honor to moderate this evening's forum. I wish the candidates luck on February 15th, and regardless of what outcomes you all encounter, I would hope and encourage you all to stay engaged. So thanks again, and thanks for coming, everyone.